All right. Good day to all of you again. I'm Helen Metzger from the United States of America. Before we begin, I'd like to let you know that due to some unforeseen circumstances, Dr. Bobby John is unable to join us today as our moderator. However, we have the honor and the pleasure to welcome Dr. Beth Nolan, a gerontologist who is currently the Director of Research and Policy at the Positive Approach to Dementia Care, the organization founded by Teepa Snow. On behalf of myself and Sharifa Tahir and Dr. Nolan, I want to welcome each of you to the inaugural International Day of Care and Support designated by the United Nations. This day elevates all care partners and brings our attention to the inequities encountered by women and girls, as they represent the disproportionate share of the unpaid care workforce globally. Although the UN resolution broadly defines care workers as those caring for children, for the elderly, and for those with disabilities, we have chosen to narrow the focus to dementia family care partners, as they represent who all of us are here today, a population that is frequently hidden behind closed doors due to the lack of awareness, stigma, cultural norms, socioeconomic factors, and more. Today, we will hear and interact with an international panel of speakers composed of current and former care partners who have become advocates representing the rights of all of us. It may be through raising awareness and reducing stigma, offering care partner training and support, advocating for changes in health policy, or engaging with researchers to make the science distinctly relative to our needs. But they, along with each of you, have committed to elevating the role of dementia care partner. Although we may reside in different countries, speak our own languages, practice different faiths, we are all bound together by a common thread. We have given our time, our energy, and our love to care for someone with dementia. Together, we can pave the way for lasting change. Now it's my pleasure to introduce my co-lead, Sharifa Tahir.
Thank you very much, Helen. My name is Sharifa, and I am in Malaysia. I wrote to Helen on October 8th, asking her if she was interested to work with me on this project. And we jumped on a Zoom call on the 10th of October. And since then, we've been working round the clock to make it happen tonight, my time in Malaysia. As the days went by, we had many more care partners and supporters who joined us. And 3 weeks later, here we are. We now have a diverse group of individuals from all over the world coming together as a global community. Today's event is a testament to the resilience and resourcefulness of care partners in the midst of significant challenges. It proves the value that we bring to the table, the value that we bring to the conversation and action surrounding dementia at all levels. It also demonstrates the possibilities of what we can achieve through leadership driven by personal experiences, support from other stakeholders, and pulling together our collective knowledge, expertise, experiences, and resources to address dementia and its intersectionality with aging, gender equality and equity, disability, and rights. These are the issues included in the UN resolution that proclaims October 29th as the International Day of Care and Support. Partnerships like this are slowly happening, but we need more of them if we're truly serious about responding to dementia as a global public health and disability crisis. As family care partners, alongside persons living with dementia, must be central to this partnership, not as tokenism, but central to the partnership. Yet, we who are predominantly women are not only mostly unpaid for the care and support that we provide, and sometimes we do that 24/7. We are also mostly unpaid in our roles and engagements as advocates. Often, we have to use our own resources for the limited opportunities available to us or for our own initiatives. This must change. Insights from our conversation today will speak to this spirit. As the founder of UMI, which stands for Uniquely Me Initiatives, I'm humbled and honored to host this event. UMI is a nonprofit dementia care and support resource center dedicated to contributing to the quality of life of individuals affected by dementia, specifically through the philosophy and practical skills of Teepa Snow's positive approach to care, which has allowed both my mother and I to live well with dementia. It is possible to live well with dementia. UMI is very, very dear to my heart as it honors my mother, whom I call Umi in Arabic means my mother. So there are many individuals and groups that I must thank today. And the first thank you goes to Umi, my mother, because I will not be here if it's not for her. This is really an honor to her. I thank my co-lead, Helen. Thank you for believing in me and going through this journey with me. Thank you. Thank you to my mentor and dear friend, Beth, Dr. Beth Nolan, who agreed to step in as the moderator. Thank you so much for that. And to my fellow care partners, Amal, Daniel, Elizabeth, Najla, Samiana, and again, Helen. Thank you for sharing your perspectives with us today. And thank you for your impactful contributions to enhancing and broadening dementia care and support. We, the family care partners, are beyond the symbol of filial piety. We are agents of change. So thank you also to our event partners, the Global Brain Health Institute, the Atlantic Fellows for Equity in Brain Health, and Teepa Snow Positive Approach to Care for supporting us. My appreciation to Dr. Maria Teresa Ferretti for her insights in a video we will watch later. Dr. Siti Maisara Matap, who will be busy monitoring and distilling the chats tonight. Thank you. Laura Koh, thank you for creating the event poster and the speaker profiles. I'm grateful also to Dr. Swarup Sakar for his guidance and networking. Mustafa Debu, that beautiful song we heard in the welcome slides. The Sonoma family meal, who let us use their office space and internet facilities. Etnies Providence for being the event manager. Amaresh and Ji Zhong, our international sign interpreters from India and Singapore. And Lucy Lim, who coordinated arrangements for the International Sign Facility. Last but not least, a very warm welcome to all of you here today, and thank you for being part of this event. A very special thank you to all care partners worldwide. We validate all of us. We acknowledge all of our challenges. It's not an easy road that we have traveled. It is extremely challenging at times. But however, today we're focusing on how we have turned our challenges into impactful actions. Thank you all once again. Let us make this gathering engaging and impactful. Now I'm so delighted to introduce my mentor and friend, Dr. Beth Nolan, who is the moderator for this event. I met Beth at Teepa's PAC training. She is the Director of Research and Policy at PAC, and in addition, she works to support care partners and persons living with dementia globally. Beth, thank you, and over to you.
Oh, what a joy to be here, Sharifa, and all of you. Thank you for staying up, for getting up early for some of you. And truly welcome. We hope that you will engage in the chat. And I thought maybe today, or the group actually thought that we would start off the tone today with a video, Fernando's video. We're going to explore themes and roles of care partnering in a way that we can actually elevate care partners around the world. And hopefully through that power, we can elevate all voices that sometimes meet in isolation and silence around the world in care partnering. So if we could go ahead and start off, and then we're going to go ahead and around the panel and talk a little bit about what we hear and what we're taking away.
Keep fighting. Use your voice. Be strong. Don't be afraid.
I think the thing that I found doing the Camino is that your job title is not important. Everyone left their identities at the door, and we have just sort of unzipped ourselves and opened up to each other. I think it's just the start of something wonderful.
It's been unlike anything I have ever experienced, for sure.
There's a lot of confusion with the term dementia. So we currently know that dementia is the final clinical stage of neurodegenerative disorders. Thus, one can say that Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia. But there are multiple other neurodegenerative disorders that are causing dementia.
I feel all these emotions. I feel sad, but it's a positive sadness because I don't want this wonderful, wonderful experience to end. The wonderful people that I've met, people that know that I have dementia, but the people that treat me as Kevin.
Find your people. Without them, there would be no Laurie. They put me here. You know, Fernando, oh my gosh. Find my Fernando, my best friend that he put everything together.
This kind of work that we're doing, it's important for us to be able to bring in nature and with little resources to people who are living with dementia.
Hi, everyone. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to participate and to talk about these two very important subjects to me. One, the experience of being in the care for my grandma. And the second one, this amazing experience, this journey that we just went through, the Walk in the Talk for Dementia that happened in May 2023 in Santiago de Compostela in northern Spain. And for beginning with the context, I had the most amazing grandmother ever. I'm definitely sure that a few of you or all of you will disagree with this sentence, but I did have the most amazing grandma. And at a certain point of my life, I'm not sure exactly when, but she became my best friend. And while developing this friendship together, I definitely went through all the culture she had, all her interests, and she also delved deep into my interests. For example, she read all the Harry Potter books and all the Lords of the Rings. She knew exactly what to talk about with me when I was a child, when I was a teenager. And at a certain point, she was 73 when we noticed something was going wrong. Something was not right, just not right. She was dizzy every day. She had this headache following her every day. And it was funny because she would wake up well, and after a while she would start with all these symptoms, and we couldn't discover what was happening to her. And after 1 year trying to figure out what was happening, going to one doctor and another, various specialties, one doctor asked us, is Grandma Nilva taking her medication right? And I said, yes, she was always so careful with that. However, I went back home and I made a test. I put the right number of pills from Monday to Monday for a week in these glass flasks. And at some point, I think Wednesday, a few days later, I noticed that everything was wrong. One was empty, the other one was full. She had hypertension, diabetes, and a few other conditions. So she was taking a few medications every day, but she was taking in not in a correct manner. And that's why she was having all these symptoms, this dizziness, this headache. And we went back to the doctor, and after a few other exams, we confirmed that Grandma was going through dementia. It was Alzheimer's disease. At this point in my life, I felt hopeless. Honestly, I didn't know what to do. I felt that my only duty as a grandson, as someone that loved her more than anything in the world, more than everything, my duty was heal her. I needed to find a cure for it. I needed to work hard to be able to pay for a cure, but that was not available, as it isn't yet. So I had to discover my role. And I think that was my biggest challenge, understanding that my role was being there for her, ensuring that she was going to be herself until the very final moment. And I'm proud to say that my grandma lived 6 years with dementia. It was not suffering for neither of us. It was an adventure. Every single day, a new adventure. And at the end, when she finally rested, she was her full grandma. She was there. She was still there. So I'm very proud to say that my grandma lived well with dementia for 6 years. When people would call me caregiver, I was actually offended by the word, because I noticed when my grandma was diagnosed, both of us, we lost our identities. She was not Grandma Nilva or Nilva Aguzzoli for most of people. She was just a patient. And I was not the grandson, the very loving and passionate grandson that I was. I was a caregiver. So it was funny to see this movement happening from one night to the next morning. I went to sleep being the grandson of my grandma, and I woke up being the caregiver for a patient. And in the eyes of society, I was just that. So I was bothered by that. And that's why I wanted to create a fan page. I created a fan page on Facebook, sharing our day by day to the public, to more than 150,000 families following us. And I was showing exactly that. I am not the caregiver because I'm not the only one caring here in this relationship. My grandma is caring for me as well. And she cared for me till the very last moment, till the very last day. I could see that in her eyes looking at me. I could see that in her touching. I could see that everywhere. She was always my grandma. She was always caring for me as I was also caring for her. So that's why I'm writing a book now called Caring and Being Cared For. Because it was beautiful to see in the Walking the Talk for Dementia, for example, when one participant living with dementia fell and his amazing and lovely wife, she was giving assistance and she was crying. She felt that was her fault. And we were 70 giving assistance, many of us doctors, nurses, and clinicians in general. But although she did have a lot of assistance, the person living with dementia went through her with a lot of difficulties walking and moving and said, "Do you want me to bring a glass of water? Do you want a hug?" So I could see the caring relationship on both sides. And that's the beautiful thing. And Walking the Talk for Dementia started when my grandma told me about the Camino de Santiago, this famous pilgrimage in northern Spain. It's a magical route to walk. And people used to walk 100 kilometers at least to get this document called Compostela. And my grandma read books about it. She was watching documentaries about it. She always told me about the Camino, but she never made it. She didn't have the resources. And then after the diagnosis, I didn't feel she was able to do it. I was wrong. It happens that I was wrong. So in 2019, as an Atlantic Fellow for Equity in Brain Health at the Global Brain Health Institute in Ireland, I had a colleague, which happens to be my best friend. And she's a neurologist from Santiago de Compostela. And she was telling me all these magical things again. And I started remembering my grandma telling herself. And so I made a challenge to my friend and said, why not to bring people with dementia from all over the world to walk the Camino? That's impossible, she said. And then I said, no, I don't think so. Let's do it. We both embarked in this adventure. And later on, we aggregated more people to organize the Walking the Talk for Dementia, a 40 kilometers journey along the Camino. We walked for 4 days, 10 kilometers a day. And then we had a 2-day symposium in Santiago de Compostela to discuss all the matters in dementia and to show that actually this is not old people matter. This is everyone's matter in a society. Dementia is a pressing and urgent issue, and we need to talk about it in all the generations from the elementary schools to the universities in many, many courses, not only medicine or psychology or nursing. I am glad to say that we gathered 25 different nationalities in the Walking the Talk among the 70 participants, 10 of which were living with dementia from Namibia in Africa, from Singapore, from United States, Spain, England, and Ireland. And it was a transformative experience, as you could see in the documentary, for everyone, especially Kevin, this lovely guy, this Irish guy you saw on the movie. Kevin is living with Lewy body dementia. And when I invited him to participate, he said, I don't think I can. Do you think I can? And I said, Kevin, I think you're too used to what you can or cannot do by the eyes of other ones. You need to decide yourself. I'm going to do the maximum I can to allow your participants there and to make that an amazing and beautiful experience to you. Do you want to do it? And he said, yes, that will mean the world to me. And I said, okay, let's do it. So that's what the Walking the Talk is all about. Giving people the right to choose their adventures and being there to ensure that this will be the safest and the most enjoyable adventure they can have. We are going to repeat the Walking the Talk next year in 2024. This is going to be from August 25th to September 1st. So we are going to literally walk towards September. I'm very excited. Some of us here in the call will be there walking. And if you want to know more, you can type walkingfordementia.org, and you can be in touch. And we are certainly going to talk to you about all the details and welcome you in Santiago de Compostela. So thank you all for hearing. And this video that you just saw, it's a small piece, a trailer of a documentary we are filming, telling the story of the Walking the Talk for Dementia through the eyes of people living with dementia. And I'm very excited to share this small trailer. This is the first time we are sharing it. We are broadcasting. I hope you like it. And this is being produced by a Brazilian company called Jaborá. And that's all. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Fernando. I wish he could be here with us, but he is, of course, working on the road in exactly this mission. So I heard the words empowering. I heard the words adventure. And today, when we talk through and with other people's adventures, this is not necessarily to dismiss or make small the difficulties that come with so many of these diseases that fall under the umbrella of dementia, but rather today to figure out how it is that when someone does get a diagnosis of dementia, or we recognize dementias in the picture, how actually we can begin to look at life in just the way we did a year before, 10 years before, with possibility, with change, but with possibility. And with that, I truly heard the word and this partnership, this care partnering that came as we move from care giving, this role of pity and of work, and to a place where two people can come together to build a larger community, to figure out how they're going to live with dementia in the picture. And I thought I would pass first to Sharifa, my friend, to see some of her thoughts with regard to this. Sharifa, I thought you'd start us off with the model that we're going to be using, which is stating your name, your role as a care partner, and then telling us a little bit of your thoughts with regard to Fernando Perez's video.
I'm Sharifa, and I'm care partnering with my mom. I think Fernando's video is absolutely powerful. In the video, we heard Lori said, find your person. And I think for many persons living with dementia, the care partner is their person. And the reason why we use care partner is because it is a relational care. It's not just us giving care to the person, because that's how we rob their dignity. In my relationship with my mom, and going back to what Lori said, that it's find your person, but I found that my person in my mother, because there's so much that she's giving me back in our relationship. So that care partnering and relational care and finding your person works. Just it stood out for me from that video. It's a very empowering video. It's very powerful.
Thank you so much. So I'm curious for the panel. I'm wondering if you might be able to share a little bit about some of the ways in which you have been empowered, the way that Fernando was, but I will say very deliberately, he made a choice, and he probably worked very hard as well at his own well-being, his own health, his own mental and physical health throughout the journey as well with his grandmother. So I'm curious, Helen, you've had various experiences being a care partner. And I'm wondering if you maybe could lead off from there, this idea of care partnering and how it can be empowering, but then also what people can take away from some of those challenges as well.
Okay. Well, everybody, I've been in the care partner role numerous times. It began with my mother when she was brain damaged when I was an 11-year-old child, the middle child of 5. And she lived to be 82, and I was her care partner always. My father, my sister, both had Lewy body dementia. They lived with it, and I was their care partners. My youngest brother also had Lewy body dementia. However, he was back east in the care of his wife, and I just consulted. So I've lived nearly my entire life in this role. And what I discovered early on was that sometimes the systems didn't respond. The clinicians didn't respond, and support was non-existent. And I think in many sectors of the world, that continues to be the case today. And many care partners are not empowered or informed as how to seek them out or find them. They just assume there is nothing there for them. Well, I'm not a timid individual. So I went and I started pounding and saying, if it doesn't exist, it needs to start being built. We need to start creating systems. And so, in my world now, with my loved ones, have transitioned on, I'm an advocate on a global level, but I also advise the US government. And I never thought, 2 years ago when I was appointed to a federal committee, here's this little girl in Northern California sitting there, and all of a sudden I'm flying to Washington, D.C. That never in my wildest dreams was an expectation. So I thank those in my family for giving me the gifts of knowledge, of me understanding who they were as persons, the intimate relationships we've had, those I consider gifts. And what they taught me through the challenges and through the good times were the gifts that I can now share with others.
Thank you, Helen. That is amazing. And from two very different lived experiences, I was wondering if Samiana would be willing to unmute and, if possible, come on camera to talk a little bit about that same experience, but from a very different viewpoint, a very different vantage point, and how driving an organization run by professionals, how you gained respect through education and knowledge. I look around the screen to see so many people who have worked very hard to have the voice that they have, and yours is one that jumped out to me as well.
Okay, I'm sorry if you can't see me. I'm not quite sure what I pressed on my computer, but can you hear me?
We can hear you beautifully. Thank you. We'd love to see your lovely face, but we can definitely hear your voice.
Okay, good. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble with my own computer, but yeah, there's a running theme here. I'm hearing through the threads here in our stories is that we're suddenly we're suddenly given this immense task to take care of our loved one who suddenly just became something that we didn't understand what was happening, and certainly I was suddenly thrown into this. I didn't realize what was going on with my mom, but when suddenly her actions and our normal way of living became disruptive. It disrupted our days because we didn't understand. She didn't know what was going on with herself, and I didn't understand what was going on with her. Eventually, the doctors were able to give us some sort of understanding of dementia, and then we were able to change our whole life. We suddenly were just normal and just hanging out, and suddenly we were pulled away from our happy and usual regular life into a place in Tonga where we had to learn again our culture, and then trying to take care of my mom who just had difficulty. Suddenly she would be conscious of what was going on with her, and then suddenly disappeared, and it can be frustrating, and at the same time there was a lot of empathy towards her as we all struggled in our family to try and understand. But it's been a challenging time for us, but at the same time, as we grew to understand her, and as we started to figure out, because in Tonga there was nothing there in the country about dementia. So when there was an opportunity for us to try and start an organization that with professionals that would be able to help the country. I immediately jumped on board because I wanted the country to understand what dementia was about, because there were too many stigmas and misunderstanding of the sickness. And I was just glad that it was through my mom that we were able to start this organization in Tonga to help the people of Tonga.
So I'm hearing so many things that seem to be resonating with our other panelists.
Mhm.
This place of not necessarily, this isn't a task that someone had chosen. This isn't a role that someone has chosen. And yet when it came upon suddenly, after a time of finding one's feet,
Mhm.
began to grow opportunities. So I'm curious, from another voice in another country that sounds a bit similar in this idea that there may not be a full understanding in the stigmas that are approaching things. Daniel, would you mind adding to that, this idea of how this role has brought you to this unexpected place beyond the surprises as well of just simply being and entering that role as care partner?
So hi everyone, my name is Daniel. I'm from Singapore. Been caring for my loved ones for about 15 years. So I care for my father living with dementia. A couple of months ago, he was diagnosed with end-stage cancer. And a couple of weeks ago, he had a fall and is now non-verbal. And being the only child, right? I have to care for both mommy and daddy. So that's a bit of a challenge. So mom is with cancer and frailty. They're both in their 80s. I'm half their age and 40. So it looks like I'm caring for my grandparents. Well, 15 years ago, there wasn't much information, resources, or any form of knowledge materials that were widely accessible and available. And it was all about hunting down, how do I even have a great conversation with my father? And in a nation-centric setup and culture, a lot of things we don't say. We never had the idea of holding my hands and growing up and hugging my dad and all that stuff. I had to relearn certain languages, and in fact, touch is our first language, but yet we have to relearn this in the course of my 40 years, right? And having difficult conversations are really tough because no one ever thinks about it, no one ever wants to talk about it. But I'm caught in that situation. I'll just give an example just to make sure that it makes sense, right? So once daddy needed someone to shower him, I never had the opportunity to learn from school or any other social context and open a conversation and says that, how do you shower your father? So little things like that. Do I talk about rubber duckies? Do I talk about the inconvenient truths of I need to touch you at certain spots that you're uncomfortable with and I'm uncomfortable with? How do you even negotiate that conversation? And yet we're doing this in the family. And that's why we are family care partners. We made a choice, we make a decision to walk this journey. It gives me that purpose in life because at 85, he was still telling me and teaching me lessons. Like if he's wearing diapers, maybe we ought to know how it feels like to be in a pair of diapers ourselves. Because if we want to administer the care that we think is right, but sometimes we don't really know better. So if you're coming at from a perspective of knowledge and understanding in terms of the national landscape, I think we have just redefined the word dementia. It was never called the dementia anyway. And over the course of time, I think things have improved. There's a long way to go, but the first step is to have that conversation because it is the inconvenient truth that we need to open up before we can get to some form of a solution and intervention. So I'll leave it as that, right, when it comes back around again. So thanks, Beth.
I love that. This idea that it is about the little moments of care partnering throughout the day. And it's trying to think of how we're going to do something that we never have been taught culturally, collectively to discuss. And therefore, there's no way that we're going to be comfortable about it, to opening up to a broader country. But it sounds like one of the through lines you talked about is this feeling of safety. And it's not just the safety that we think about, the feeling of being safe for the person living with dementia, but also for us as care partners, that we can have a safe place where my dad can still be my dad. My mom can still be my mom. And if that role changes in their view, that we can still be two people together as we are connected. But this through line of safety and finding community seems to be something that I heard, Amal, when I heard a little bit about your story. and how it was that you then grew from not only taking this from a one-on-one moment, but dealing with many different issues of safety. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about your journey and how you found community as well.
Yes. Okay. Hello, everyone. I am Amal Saif from Yemen, and I have a story to tell. It's also regarding my mom who got a dementia. And I have heard all the comments from the speakers, and they really also fit to what I have been facing from my mother. My mother has died now almost 5 years ago, but I still look at the experience as if it was very recent. I remember a time when we were struggling. I can see myself in every corner in the house doing something for her or trying really hard to make her laugh, feel safe, feel appreciated as well. So, the challenge is that during the war that has started in Yemen in 2015, it was really challenging to make her feel comfortable and feeling safe, because the sound was, cannot be hidden, like just the rockets, the missiles, especially at the middle of the night, and not the middle of the night, any time at night, at daytime. So I had to think very quickly about a place where she will be safe. Nothing is going to happen if a nearby bomb was thrown or a missile was initiated from far. So I have choose a nice warm room where the walls were really wide, and I placed her bed there, and then I had a peace of mind when first I secured the place where she can stay. And I remember that really it was hard, but that we had a chance to travel to a nearby Arab country. And she was feeling better, of course, because she was an anxiety all the time. She felt that something is going not right in the neighborhood, and all the time she's asking, "What is happening? Why I hear all these sounds?" And so I was able to take her for a break, and then we came back again, but we had to live with the situation. The good thing that we were around her, and yeah.
Yeah, kind of brings it to another level.
Yes, yes. It doesn't happen only for my house or my mother, but it's the situation in every house in the Sana'a, the capital, that was really really hard. It was targeted, but it wasn't. I mean, number one city that was targeted, but in every house in Sana'a that had an elderly people, and and I can see that really among, I mean, I have no statistic to support my talk with the statistics, but surely because of the war, many dementia cases happened. So we had to sort of make people aware about the protection as much as we can during this harsh time. So unfortunately, the stigma is not strong in the Yemen. People here, they don't have things to hide, so they will easily talk about that they have a person who is not well or who psychologically changed. So they're wondering, they're asking each other for advices or how to manage the situation in their houses. Yeah. But if there is a stigma, then it will be because people have a lack of knowledge that what is this happening to their patient, and they have nothing to do to help them out. So they might, at that time, they might just stay in their house and not communicate this to others.
So this time and this place where we can think about how it is that we as a community, how we're using those cultural norms, those places of connection to really empower in moments of quiet, where we can recognize that there is something that's going to draw us all together here. And we hear Amal's story being so much more complex, the layers of war zone, of unstable governments, and also touching on this idea that she recognized that there was power in the fact that the stigma of being unwell was not something that she had to grapple with. And these straws of grasping, going, okay, at least I can say I'm here with my mother and I'm her care partner. That was a little bit different. That was powerful to hear, Amal. Thank you so much. So
yes, I am happy. Yes.
No, go ahead.
Yes, I'm happy to participate in this webinar. It's very interesting, and I can only say that people who are under the shadow or the dark cloud of stigma, before they harm the people living with dementia, they harm themselves first, because they live with the emotion of what you call it, the emotion of guiltiness, being guilty, because they're hiding, they're not in letting this people living with dementia enjoying family functions in the house, just normal. And they, even if they're eager to go maybe and want to participate, they will stop them and they will turn them back to the room. This is not right.
No,
because how can you live with this feeling that I mean, you're not allowing a person to just live normally? I mean, other people, they're pulling these people to act normal, to feel normal, to participate, to break the isolation. But those who do that in contrary to the norms, so they feel really not well inside, because it's a feeling of guilt, it's a feeling of care burden.
Truly.
So it's a lot of emotions. A feeling also, the third burden is that the person you are in front of you is losing the personality that you're used to for a long time. And this is by itself is not easy.
No.
Because, for example, as Danielle said, he wanted to have just a proper conversation with the surroundings, and he's taking care. And it's, you know, when you have a good healthy conversation, it gives you empowered you inside. But this is lost because you cannot have a good conversation. So you have to just to lower your mind activities, or for mind power to less than normal, in order, you know, to care for people with the dementia. You have to answer silly questions, you have to do silly jobs, you have to, and itself, it's very hard.
It's so watching this resonate with folks. I wanted to bring in Elizabeth to the story as well, to hear about this idea, because it sounds like a lot of the themes we were addressing, although, you know, obviously with Fernando and Daniel here as well, it seems to be as well that there's possible that the stigma that comes with this also hits us with gender issues and gender roles. The idea of, can we speak with knowledge and power if in fact there's not the degrees behind our name, but yet this strong lived experience, also then dealing with the cultural stigma. So I wondered if, Elizabeth, if you were able to come on and talk a little bit about your experience in a totally different place for you.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth. I'm from Kenya. So my dad started showing dementia symptoms. Of course, we know they may have started much earlier when I was 17 years. And so my dad was a policeman, and he was my friend. So we used to have conversations, and he would read for me all the storybooks about being a princess and chicken licken and telling me how I can do anything in this world. And I believed I could do anything in this world. And so when I was 17, he became violent, which was very much unlike him. And he started fighting especially myself, because he felt, I remember him telling me that I was usurping authority over him. And I couldn't understand what had happened to my dad. And he started now selling the car in parts. So he would sell the tires separately from the rest of the vehicle, because for him, there were different components. Then what shocked us was because he had taken me until high school. I was just finishing my O levels, and my sister was joining Form 1 to start her high school. And he tells my sister that she cannot join high school because she's girls don't go to school. They wait to get married, according to our culture. And my father was, a learned man. So all of a sudden, all his short-term memory has been wiped out, and he's talking about things that he used to do when he was younger. And now he's telling us about how girls don't go to school. They wait for their husbands. So we were very confused, because we thought there was a very big problem and we didn't understand what it was. I come from a community where they believe that anything you cannot explain. Sorry, can you hear me clearly?
So Helen, I think you're muted. If you could feel free to unmute.
Yeah, I think the issue, Elizabeth, is that there's a lot of background noise.
In the background. Oh my goodness. I have tried to go to the corner that is less noisy. Okay, sorry about that, people. I'm sorry. I am at a family function, so I have to hide somewhere. So anyway, I was saying, so what shocked us was now Daddy started now insisting that girls don't go to school, girls need to wait to get married. And so I had to go and look for work at 17 so that I can take my siblings to school. But the interesting bit is where I come from. I was saying I come from a community where they believe anything that you cannot understand is as an effect of witchcraft. And so a lot of people, although we were Christians, believed in the Lord, they still felt we were secret sinners, we were doing things behind the back, and that's why we were getting punished. So it took us 15 years to get a diagnosis. And for me, that is what pushed me to start the organization that I run, that is called Alzheimer's and Dementia Organization Kenya. What pushed me was because I didn't understand how it would take 15 years for you to get a diagnosis, and not even the doctor does not understand. But I realized also one of the mistakes we were doing was the fact that we never spoke about it.
You never spoke about it.
We never spoke about it, because we would go in and say, oh, he's having problems with his blood pressure, with his diabetes, but we would never speak about the forgetting, would never speak about the issues we are facing with him and what we are going through and the violence that we had started experiencing. And so the day when we actually told the doctor, actually, we also noticed he's forgetting, he's repeating himself. And we started giving an analogy of what was going through. The doctor was like, sounds like dementia. Go and Google, but there's no cure. That is how we were told to go and find out for ourselves what Dad had. And for me, that told, I am a counseling psychologist by profession, and so I was in school then. And I was like, if this is how you can be given such information, then there must be a group I can go to and plug in where I can get this information and get help, because I knew if somebody has cancer, there must be a cancer group somewhere, and all that. But there was no group, nobody understood. It's a hush disease, even in Kenya until. So I started talking about it, raising awareness about it, and I started writing. And so I continued writing and telling people what I was experiencing. And that is when more people came out and they're like, oh, I'm going through this. This is my challenge too. So for me, I feel that when we start speaking about it and creating awareness about it, it brings a change, because that's when the government noticed that what we are doing, and they have come on board, and we're working on our dementia plan in Kenya right now. But if we had kept quiet and not talked about it, then nobody would have understood. So I believe in the power of speaking. There might not be a solution at the moment, but somebody's listening, and they're going to give the help that you require.
Oh, this is the exact reason we are having these conversations. So beautifully stated, and bringing so many of the speakers so far together. This idea that we as care partners, even that initial conversation, being brave enough to continue to ask providers for what is necessary, which is the proper understanding and respect for the fact that this is a separate disease. And the scary part about this is it doesn't actually change the fact that our aging bodies also experience other things as we go. And we do need to check those out, but actually encouraging providers to be empowered by our questions as care partners, maybe a first place. So we have another speaker to hear from, and I'm really excited to get to Najla's thoughts. I do wish to, at 10 o'clock, to do two things. One, to do a quick pause and actually take a look at another video that we've got, a very short one with Maria. And in this video, I'm hoping that we might be able to think about care partnering in the world when we think of women, but yet when we listen to Maria discuss this, Dr. Maria Teresa Frenetti, she's a neuropsychologist on sex and gender differences in dementia. And when following her participation, and actually in the video, the Walk the Talk in Spain, she found that she had to return to her grassroots to inform her science and inform her work. So let's watch her talk a little bit about gender, because from here, I would love the speakers to be thinking about the ways in which we can empower policymakers to consider changing the way that we support on individual women's issues, but also just this care partnering role for an entire country to empower all of us to recognize that this does affect all individuals regardless of gender. Ednice, would you mind playing that?
Hello everyone, good morning and good afternoon. My name is Maria Teresa Ferretti. I'm a neuroscientist, a neuroimmunologist, a researcher in the field of Alzheimer's disease for the past 15 years. And I have a great interest in the topic of gender medicine and advocacy in general. I would have loved to be there with you today live to join the discussion for this important UN Day for the caregivers. Unfortunately, I'm not able to join live. So here I thought I would send a short contribution just to mention the points that are very dear to me and I find super important to mention, and those that I think should be further discussed. The overwhelming burden of caregiving on women and girls is something that is uncontroversial. The numbers are very clear. This applies to dementias and in general to chronic diseases. In dementia, we have the number that 2/3 of caregivers are women. The point is really to discuss and understand what does that mean, what does that entail, what happens to these women. And I think it's super relevant to actually look at this issue from multiple points of view. First of all, from a health perspective, I think it's very important to mention that research shows that women tend to not only take the burden of caregiving in general in terms of overall caregiving, but it's also been shown that actually they tend to take over the most heavy type of work and duties. So this impacts very heavily on their physical health and also on their mental health. Caregiving is linked to increased risk of a number of diseases and in general to poor health, especially when it's related to full-time caregiving. And it can also be linked to increased risk of a number of conditions, including depression and dementia itself. So caregiving, especially in women, has a profound impact on their health, and this is something we should take into consideration. It also has a profound impact at the societal level, because women who become caregivers very often abandon their work, either part-time or completely. This is unpaid. We're talking about unpaid caregiving work. So it's basically an investment that women are doing and gifting their resources to the society. But there is nothing that is coming back to them, actually all the other way around. Caregiving, time spent caregiving and the need to leave the workforce is actually one of the reasons why women in the elderly tend to have lower pensions. So we're talking about pension gap, which we observe in the whole OECD area. And in general, they are at higher risk of poverty. The duty, this need for informal caregiving, because there is no other option basically for families, has therefore a profound impact also on the societal level in terms of possibilities and opportunities for women in their career and financially. So this is also a topic that I think needs to be addressed. I'm very passionate about these topics from a research point of view, but I also have to tell you that for me it's been incredibly important to actually have the opportunity to discuss these topics and to hear the real stories during an event which is called Walking the Talk for Dementia, which I joined in May this year. That gave me an opportunity to actually walk for 4 days together with people involved somehow in the field of dementia, either because they were studying dementia like me, or they were people living with dementia and their caregivers, scientists, doctors, nurses, experts in policy. So this was an extremely immersive experience. An empowering experience that gave me the opportunity to really spend a lot of time and to listen to stories and to exchange ideas. And this has really inspired me. The opportunity to hear the experience of the families going through, especially dementia caregiving, the struggles, but also the dignity and the power and the education and the ideas that that sparkled actually during these conversations really convinced me that caregivers and in general also people living with dementia, especially those in the early stages, are basically an untapped resource. So this is a segment of the population that we as researchers should not only study, but actually we should collaborate with. So I'm a great supporter of this initiative in general, and in general of the idea of involving more and more the public and the people experiencing with lived experience of the disease in research. And I hope that this will also be a topic that will be discussed and developed further during this day. So I wish you a good rest of the day, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.
So what an empowering sort of thing to think about this as care partners, and the experience that each one has is actually becoming an untapped resource. So Najla, your job, your role changed completely as you became a care partner. So I wonder if you would speak as you would to this role of how it is that care partners can actually be part of the conversation to think about how we are using our collective knowledge that we've gained as an untapped resource. I'll have you unmute.
Great, thank you so much, Beth. Yeah, I'd like to just start with Salam Alaikum, just to welcome everybody, and peace and blessings to you, each and every one of you. I'm quite moved by the number of participants today. We have an excess of 90, which means it's a very pressing topic. You know, globally, everyone's interested. My journey. So my name is Najla Turk, and I'm here from Sydney, Australia. It's currently 1:10 a.m. in the morning, and if I wasn't passionate about this movement, this topic, I wouldn't be here. I'm extremely passionate because it's changed my life for the better, I must admit. But I'll just take it on the journey. So prior to my husband has early onset dementia, so it's quite early in life. And my father is 30 years older than my husband, 35 years older than my husband, and he was well mentally right until the very last minute of life, and that was like almost 3 months ago. So for me, it's been a journey because I'm co-caring for my father, but caring for my husband. So prior to my husband being diagnosed, I would say that I was quite successful because I didn't have a job. I had a career. So my career was talking about diversity and inclusion, and I was traveling prior to COVID, and I was very independent. I was fiercely independent. And so this is our relationship has been my entire life, that my husband, worked and I worked and we managed the children, and we just were two independent individuals that came together. In Australia, we don't talk about caregiving. We don't talk about care partnering. We talk about the carer role. So my husband was diagnosed with dementia, I automatically fell into the carer role. And in my mind, a teacher teaches, a doctor does doctoring, a carer does the caring. So I went into automatic caring mode, and I was caring for him. But I had no idea what was involved, because I was under the understanding that dementia is all about memory loss. No one told me it was anything different. So this adventure, so much for an adventure, there's no adventure in my world. And so here I am, quite successful in my life. I'm now a carer, and I'm being a bicultural woman. I'm Middle Eastern, I'm Muslim, and I'm also very Western. Like, where do I find that happy medium? And so I just felt that I had to, it was an obligation that I must leave my livelihood, just to surrender my livelihood to care for my partner, truly my partner. But the doctors didn't understand the disease. When they said he was diagnosed, they said to me, you have to consider putting him in a nursing home. And that's also against my culture, against my values, because it wasn't something that we discussed. And because I know the stigma that goes on in the community, because there's no word for dementia in Arabic, it's like someone's crazy, they've lost their mind. So I saw the disease as a loss. So I had lost my identity, and he had lost a lot of his memory. He was losing a lot of his memory. So my whole mindset was loss, loss, loss. And because of the stigma, I wanted to protect him, as you do what you protect your loved ones. So I withdrew from community. I actually pulled back. And so instead of being out there and asking for support, I'm trying to cover it up. And he was very vocal in the beginning, and he had, signs of memory loss, but that progressed, and now he's nonverbal. So I've been on this journey. It's like, okay, so where do I fit into this? So it's been very challenging. And it wasn't until I joined a research project at the University in Sydney called Sphere, so Sydney Partnership, Health, Economics, Education, Research and Enterprise. So they're bridging the knowledge from what they understand of dementia to practice. So there's a practice gap. So I was a participant in that 6-week program, and we were doing a project called Stitch It for Dementia. It's just stitching, going back to cultural, where people get together, and everyone in the group had a loved one who had dementia. And my journey in the group was to create an art piece. It was stitching. And there's a process that I went through, and it allowed me to learn about myself. And at that point, it was like an epiphany. I realized that I don't need to surrender who I am. I don't need to succumb to cultural pressures and be his carer. I can be his partner and still continue to do what I love to do. So I just found that balance. I had to actually work to find the balance, but thank God there was a project, a stitching project, dementia project. It was all about giving us a voice, and it was a safe space. So it's where I was isolated from community, was isolated from family. I was now in an environment that allowed me to speak my truth, express my fears and my concerns, and learn about the disease. And it is a disease, and I had no idea it was actually terminal.
Oh, I mean, just the basics of dementia that is not brought out in that provider care partner conversation right away. I'm so grateful that the late, great Professor Gaynor MacDonald brought about that program, and that as a result, you found this pathway to recognizing that balance and how critical that is for care partners. Purpose and meaning with engagement to live life. It's got to adapt to that individual's cultural practices and support and actually empower those. What a beautiful tie. And that brings us beautifully as well. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to add, to finish up, is that where my husband had a voice, he could speak and articulate, and I had my mouth closed, like I was kept it on the hush, and now he's nonverbal and I have a voice, and now I speak about dementia, and I challenge perceptions and stigmas, and I talk about women's rights, and we can still work, and we can still be, not lose our identity, but step up and be the advocate that we are, the strong advocate, and we have choice. At the end of the day, it's a right. It's a right to expression. It's a right to. For my husband, advocate for music therapy, recreational. He's out there in the community. And, the community are quite surprised, like, this man has dementia. Shouldn't he be in a nursing home? No. He has a right. Quality of life is so important. So that's where our partnering comes together, that we're working really well together. And yeah, we're defying all odds. And I'm just absolutely loving the journey because he's present. And my job is to ensure that he has quality life.
That's a beautiful place to bring that, how we actually take the voice that we can find when we learn what the language is to communicate. So how do we then take this to a broader level? How do we elevate this to empower other care partners that come behind us and can learn from our journeys as well, so they come to a place where it's not one of a tragedy narrative and a sufferer narrative? So I'm curious, with these roles of gender differences, of this fact that we're pulling a whole host of individuals out of the workforce and therefore into this economic and also physical isolation. So I'm curious, Sharifa, if you might be able to speak to this concept of how we take our voice and elevate it so we are actually walking the exact same pathway in parallel again and again as care partners.
Absolutely. And I think, the video from Maria, what stood out for me, and this is my personal journey as well, having to quit the United Nations as in a career path to voluntarily choose to care for my partner, my mother. And I think, while that was a personal choice, I wish for me and for all the care partners, having to choose either work or care partnering, that doesn't have to be a choice. That it is a right for women to go to work to earn a living, and when suddenly the next morning you wake up, you become a care partner, many of us will end our career because of social expectation, gender expectation, and going then, therefore, not having an income and care partnering, and take a personal experience for me, using the savings that I've put in for old age to a comfortable life when I'm older, that's all gone towards my mother. And I'm not complaining, but that is the reality for many of us. So this links to policy, harmonization of different policies. If then I go into older adulthood, I'm poorer, I'm sicker, so the cycle continues. So therefore, you are just taking this group of healthy, productive adults to care for their loved ones, and then they become, going back, I'm looking at Daniel because he asked that question, who is going to take care of us? Exactly that point. So I think what we're talking about, us being expected to do an extremely difficult job and to do it very, very well, to not get supported, to not get paid, I think that's exploitation. And I think that is a flawed thinking on the part of people in authority who should be making these policies and programs that ensure that these people are protected because of the value and the critical role that they give into the loved ones, so that when they're in the old age, there is, a system that's going to support them. Let me just go back to the numbers. In 2019, it was estimated that the cost of dementia care was at $1.3 trillion per year. And 50% of that is accounted to informal family care partners, which means us. We are contributing to the economy. That's huge. And it's going in 2050 is going to go up to 2.8 trillion. Now with COVID kicking in and having also possibility of neurodegenerative diseases that you could live with cognitive decline or cognitive impairment. So you're seeing a bigger number potentially, which dementia is also a disability. So this a larger group of people we need to take care of. So unless we look at all the policies that are going to impact on the person and their care partners and the families, not just now, but in the long run, we are going to have a crisis that's going to go on forever unless we find a cure for dementia.
Yeah. And we're talking about finding a cure, right, for 80 to 100 plus different forms and types and causes that fall under this umbrella. So it sounds like the through part that you're talking about, Sharifa, is this place where that we're looking at policies in silos. We're looking at policies under population groups. But yeah, we're going to have to take this in this endemic approach that it is, that creating policies that talk about care partnering in such a way that actually elevate the role across a country, across a region. So today's conversation had to do with bringing out this idea that we are having true knowledge gain through these lived experiences. And we've seen this work for other populations before. We've seen it once again happen when women chose to say in the birthing process, this is not the way it should go. Someone else should not be making decisions for me and my baby. And therefore, the birthing experience in most countries around the world has dramatically changed. And it isn't just first world nations. It's not just rich nations. It is changing in terms of the expectations of how this is not a medical situation, but also life altering. How can we take these sorts of models and combine this collective knowledge base to think about what we're doing and how we're going forward? So we have about 10 minutes left. And there's been some wonderful chat going on. And I would encourage you to throw out questions, throw out statements in there. And I'll have our chat chasers, our very educated and knowledgeable chat chasers, unmute if they could, and also tell us and let us know something. But I'm curious from the panel, how does this conversation, this tip of the iceberg, change the way you're going to talk to your neighbor, talk to your policymaker? What does this empower you to do, or what are you doing right now to elevate this role of national importance for you where you are? Yeah, Helen.
Hi there. Like I mentioned earlier, 2 years ago, I was appointed here in the United States to a council called NAPA, and it meets quarterly and it has various subcommittees that work on recommendations that go to the U.S. government, the U.S. Congress, hopefully to get money to create, and it falls under the realms of research, clinical care, risk reduction is our newest panel, and long-term support services. And this jumps off of over 15 years ago, the World Health Organization notified the world, all the countries, all the nations, that due to the aging populations, the shifting in those demographics, and people living longer due to medical technology, that in fact, dementia the rate of it was going to accelerate. So that the nations needed to prepare national plans, a response. Otherwise, it could bankrupt their systems. So many nations have responded, others have not. They haven't taken it seriously. Maybe they don't believe in dementia, it's just old age. Why should we worry about it? The families will cover. And so what's occurred is the United States has taken it seriously. And so we meet to make recommendations for funding, and that covers particularly research. We've seen an acceleration in that. Long-term support services, there's just 3 months ago been an announcement about a new program. Do I believe that it's enough? No, there are still, we're a very large country. We have very diverse populations. We have very rural versus urban populations. The cities will have more and they'll have access to health care, where the rural populations may have to travel 100 miles or more to get to the nearest physician. So how do we build the infrastructures to support that? How do we train the professionals to be able to respond? Because worldwide, we already have a huge disparity when it comes to training of medical professionals in a whole variety of fields. fields that can respond to this. So it's going to take concerted effort and constant passion and information that we share with our policymakers, because we're the experts. We need to be informing them, and they need to listen, and we need to not allow them to say no to us.
Well, it brings down this idea that money does follow or actually propel action many times. And this is the reality in terms of training and knowledge. And it actually also brings up just the sheer numbers, the fact that when care partnering brings and pulls out an entire population at this level, regardless of the country, we're talking about national security issues. We're talking about economic impact in entire countries. So this idea that we can truly bring together as a voice to say, how is it that we are supporting care partners on issues of truly economic security here for an entire country really elevates it to policy members. So I'm curious if any of the other panels or if someone in the chat, yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
So just an opinion, right? So we always say prevention is better than cure, but you know, how many of us really truly embrace that? So the whole idea of, you know, everybody goes for functional screening, but when we give out cognitive screening, nobody ever comes forward. It's like what Elizabeth is saying, right? When the doctor tells you, then you're losing it, right? But there's no way to fix it. So what are you going to do for the next half of your life? So this is a big question, right? To anyone out here. And there's no money in preventive. That's what policy does, because policy wants immediate, you know, I can count a number of people who go for screening. We want to make sure that how many people got fished out. But if you're doing it right, there would not be a need 30 years down the road, 40 years down the road to build more nursing homes, to build more hospitals, and so on and so forth. It's we're getting it right at a younger age. We're about preventive stuff, brain health, all that matters. It's just we're not wired that way. It says that only when we have a wound we fix it. It's just I think, and also the other part of it is that giving out our jobs, giving out our profession to care for our loved ones. I think it's also part of a value system that our family subscribe to and the upbringing that we are brought up. But beyond just caring for the disease, beyond just caring for our loved ones, I think we also need to start talking about having how good a life they have and now planning them leaving. So we live well just in order to live well. And I believe that we're in a death avoidance society. We don't want to talk about it. We skirt around it, but we can't really understand it again, right? So we impart a lot of values, a part of culture, a lot of all this stuff, but I never really asked my dad how he likes to die. And if we are actually really going through that right now, and it came to my realization after 43 years and saying that, Daddy, what would your underwear look like when you're going to die? Can I make you as comfortable as you are when you're dying? So I think it has to be a holistic, pervasive experience. I mean, I'm a nobody. It starts from the home, right? And if we can get it right from the home, we can impact the community, which we did. So I have a block WhatsApp chat that helps with caring for my loved ones, because they are familiar with my father and my mother, and they take them around while I'm doing what I need to do, right? So it gives me time for respite. It gives me time to have dignity and ability to contribute to a larger community. And that's I think where the family, the businesses, the community, and then the policies happen. So I think it has to be a holistic experience rather than just in silos, where you were saying it earlier, Beth. I just want to end on that note. Yeah.
That's such a great point, this idea that each of these examples, we're going to have to unfortunately translate for our policymakers what that means for a collective society. And that's where these conversations can really propel us. I hope Ednice is able to bring in one of our participants onto the panel, because she's been just such a great contributor in the chat, or he, I'm actually, Rosalie, if they're able to come on and share their thoughts. And as they're coming on, this thinking that has come through, oh, wonderful, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm Anjang. Sorry that I have to to disturb the thing that's going on. As you all read through my chats, I've been having dementia for about 17 years. So I'm being a young onset DOPD dementia plus Parkinson. But if you were to meet me outside, when you're talking to me, maybe in a cafe or wherever, you will never think that I have dementia. Because I did my homework and I did a lot of things, because I do not want to bother my wife, my loving wife, and my son. I've not been working for 7 years. I have no income. I used to make about $100,000 Sing per year before dementia. Now it's zero. But how just like to share, dementia is incurable. Cannot be, you cannot cure dementia, but you can sustain. You can slow down the progress. So once for me, I'm a self-advocate also. I do home visit. I take calls, from people. I just took calls from a caregiver before I started the webinar, the Zoom. So for care partners, I think it's very important, for care partners, because we talk about government, or we talk about authority. I'm sick of them because I've been seeing too many members of parliament, the ministers and so many things, even I met the president of Singapore, the ex-president.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing can be done. There's nothing can be done. So to me, we have to go back into inside the home of the person living dementia and care partners.
Yes.
Okay, the care partners, the first thing you all should learn on how to distress yourself, to lower down. Because a lot of care partners nowadays are female, women. And, especially if they are, I'm going to say, because, in your body, you got so many hormone changes, like for your woman, you all have your, I'm sorry to say, your periods and everything, So the stress level, when your cortisol level go up, then you will get what you call that, imbalance hormones and everything, your stress, will go up. So first of all, care partners are very important. Very, very important.
The care partners,
you
so important. This idea you're bringing out, it's the partnership, isn't it? So
yeah. To me, the care partners are very important to take care of themselves. Okay,
yes.
Then for the person living dementia, if they can get earliest diagnosis, will be very, very good. So
and it saves relationships, doesn't it? Early diagnosis can save relationships as well as we start to recognize changes.
Yes, but what I'm trying to say is that you see me, 17 years of dementia, having more than 5 episodes of suicidal. But I still can talk. I can still can think. Even though I forget 80% of my childhood and everything. What I'm trying to say is that the care partners are very important, and also the person living dementia, they should, together with the care partners, to work up a defense. I call it a defense strategies, for the person dementia to sustain. If not, if you don't understand about, let me just tell you, if you don't understand about the basic of the brain function, then you know nothing. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it.
Yes.
You can involve a lot of things, but if you don't understand this, then you will not be like me, where I can sustain for so many
advocate.
years. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I also advocate the same.
Oh, that is wonderful.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, just thank you all for being here today. We are at time, unfortunately, but we're hoping that this begins the conversation, and we have recorded this. And for those of you who registered, that recording will become available as it's processed. So give us a few days or so. But yeah, so if there's any other wraps from our wonderful, amazing hosts, Helen or Sharifa, you can share our closing. And of course, Helen's deferring to you, Sharifa.
Oh, thank you so much, everybody. I mean, from the organizers, from the care partners, from our supporters, our friends, and everybody, from everybody in the audience. I'm overwhelmed. I feel very humbled that we got this far in 3 weeks, and that everybody's been extremely amazing and supportive. And again, I go back to what I said earlier, and Anjang put really, really nicely. This is what is possible with persons with dementia, with care partners. And I think as we move forward, we'd love to have all of you, jump on the wagon, because we need to be a force to be reckoned with, because the changes can happen, but it will happen a lot faster with us taking that courage and to really put ourselves out there and say, this has got to change. We cannot do status quo, because by doing the status quo, we're not going to get to what we all collectively have a shared vision. So this is possible. And I'm very excited for all of us to come together, pull our resources together, and move forward together. So thank you very much again, everybody. And we'll, like Beth said, this is the beginning. Really hope there'll be more along the way. It could be us, it could be you organizing it. So it's possible. So thank you very much again. Thank you.
Thank you all. We are at time. I hope the panel is able to stay on, but we wish you all well. We wish you health and happiness, and even moments of contentment, if that's where you're at this moment. And thank you.
Okay. There will be a survey at the end. Hopefully, when you sign out, it will pop up. So please complete it and let us know how we did today. Thanks so much.